All right, we are live. So I tried to do a live stream yesterday and ran into some problems, but I am back again today, and I'm just going to do a short one. We have to go up, we have to feed our horses, we have to get our sheep cleaned, we have to get our chickens cleaned, all the fun stuff that we do around here on the weekend. Okay. So just to recap what happened in the last two videos. So in the first video, I kind of talked about what I thought I was going to do. Got a GitHub set up, repo set up, and populated our plugin with some boilerplate. I think the video after that, we then wrote up a menu with at least some of the preliminary items that we're going to have on that menu, just a bootstrap drop-down menu. And then we went ahead and we decided that we wanted this menu added when the the user opened a project. And I just got to thinking about that. And I don't think that's actually what we want. I think what we're going to want, just got some notification, I'm not sure what that was, but what I think we're actually going to want is that we want these first two menu items, the create new repo and clone existing repo, to actually be there as soon as people open up Pinegrow. And that's because, those are both things where we're not going to have a project already open. We're either going to sort of create a brand new project, and maybe this one should be after we create a project in Pinegrow, not sure. And then the other one is to clone an existing repo. Again, we're not going to want something open. We're going to want to clone it and then open it. So I think these two we're going to move out and have them be available as soon as the person starts Pinegrow. We're also going to have the settings ready as soon as people start Pinegrow. But I think the stage changes and commit changes we want to come in later. We want them to come in when the person actually has a project open that's actually a GitHub project. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to remove these two options. So just going to take those, put those onto a new page, save them for later. So now we're down to just the three that we want to appear right away. Now, if you remember, this particular Pinegrow function, add plugin control to top bar, takes a couple of different parameters. This third parameter is always show. So right now we have it set to false because we wanted it to only show when we had a project open. And that's what this function does. It says if there's a project that's opened up, return true. And display the menu, else return false and don't display the menu. Well, now we want these displaying right away. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change this to true and then just get rid of this function. So we can delete it back to there. Get rid of the comma. So now we should be okay. Yeah. So if we just fold this code up, our closings are good. So we got closing bracket or parentheses, curly brackets, closing parentheses for here, and then the closing curly bracket and parentheses for our anonymous function. All right. Just realizing the other thing that I should do before I get too much further is go ahead and change out the branch. So right now we're on the tutorial 2 branch. We want to change this to be the third tutorial. So I'm going to click on that. That'll bring up our palette of different GitHub things that we can do here. And then we're going to create a new branch. tutorial 3. Crud. So I'd actually created one yesterday before we had technical problem. I had technical problems plus just plain wasn't having a good coding day that I called tutorial 3. So we're gonna let's just rather than fuss about, well, I guess we could just recheck this one out. No, it's probably gonna make changes. So let's do this. We'll just create a sub branch from that. And so right now we don't have any changes showing because we made those changes on before we made the sub branch. But when we push this up, it will make these changes, and we're going to make some other changes in this file anyway. So even though these, we deleted these out, you know what? Let's go ahead and enter a commit right now anyway. Let's just say that it let's just say that. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so now we've got that pushed up. Actually, let's do that. Create pull request. All right. So now, basically, we're going to, if we go ahead and fire up our Pinegrow now, let's go ahead, do a restart. We can now see that we have our GitHub menu right away. It's just got those two plus the settings being displayed. So that's exactly what we want. But now we need to reestablish those two menu items once a person opens a project. So the thing is, in order to do that, we need some way to be able to monitor the page for changes, and specifically monitor it for a project being added. And so the way we do that with Pinegrow is there's a variety of different hooks, and some of the hooks are a little bit tough in that they fire when Pinegrow first opens up, but then it's hard to, or rather they don't fire again necessarily. And so instead of using some of those hooks, we're going to add an actual event handler. And so basically with those, you can add those by hooking into, again, Pinegrow. And there's a bunch of different ones. The easiest way to find those, I probably should show that. Easiest way to find those, so if we navigate to our applications folder, I'm on a Mac, so my applications are here in an application folder. So I've got Pinegrow right here. I can right click on this Pinegrow icon and say show package contents. That's going to open up a bunch of, well, the package. There's a bunch of content here that's important to have NWJS actually run our application. And then the stuff that we're interested in is here in this resources folder. So there's some more app icons and such. The one that we're really interested in is right here, the app.nw. So we can take that. Guess we can most easily, a lot of times I'll do this from the command line, so don't always work a lot within the Finder with the mouse. But we have actually, I actually had looked up this before. So the event handler that we're going to want is on project loaded. And so the way I found this is I just went ahead, opened up that the whole of Pinegrow, So if you just look at the files, you've got this library, you've got a variety of stuff. The one big one that we use there that I look around a lot is the CRSA. But in this case, what I did was I just looked for add event handler. If I go ahead and look for that now, you can see that there's just a ton of different files with event handlers. And then you can just take a look. And so, for example, this one is on element selected. So anytime an element gets selected, this event handler would fire and trigger the function that's following it. This particular function takes at least 3 parameters: the actual page, the element that was selected, and an info. I'm not sure exactly what this parameter delivers, but the one that we were interested in was on project loaded. So basically this one is going to fire whenever a project is loaded. Let's go with this one. So this one takes at least 2 different parameters: a page null and a project parameter. And so I'm not totally sure what things are going to be passed in each case. We could actually console log those to take a look. But this is the main thing that we're going to need. So let's just go ahead and copy that. Go back over into our code and go ahead and paste that. We'll just close this out for right now to make sure that we don't create an error. And let's also let's give a comment so we make sure we know what we're doing with this here. Open, and this one is going to add project specific menu items. All right, so now we have this. Like I said, we can console log those particular parameters coming in. I'm going to assume that they're objects. So one of the things you can do with console log is, of course, you could do this. Whatever item you're wanting to put out to the console, separate it with a comma, and then the actual thing that you want to output. But the other thing that you can do is you can actually, if you have an object, surround that with curly brackets. And what that'll do is it will actually tell you within the console log what the particular thing is you're outputting, and it sort of formats it in a way that's a little easier to read. We're going to do the project as well. I don't think that we need either of these, to tell you the truth, but it'd be just nice to see what they're supposedly giving us in the way of information that we can then work with. Okay, so the next question is, what do we want to do when the person opens the project? And basically what we want to do is we want to add those 2 menu items in back in right after this HR, or excuse me, right before this HR, right before this divider. So just back into the place where they were. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to actually get this menu. And what we can do to facilitate that, make that a little easier for ourselves, is give that an ID. So we've got an ID here of GitHub menu. What do we call this one? How about something like that? GitHub dropdown. All right, so now we have, oops, let's put that in double quotes. So now we have a way to target this. So then within our event handler, we can just target that. We can say let our target menu equal get element by ID, and then that element is the GitHub dropdown. Oops. So now we'll have that target menu. And the only other thing that I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to make sure that I get that targeted correctly by just console logging it out and looking at, again, what that object will consist of. All right, so go ahead and save that. I'm going to go back to Pinegrow, do a reload, wait for it to start back up. Okay, that's not a good thing. So we don't see our console log popping up. That means there must be some kind of error. So we can force that console to pop up, the dev tools to pop up by clicking on inspect. That brings it up. So what do we have? Oops, missing a parentheses after the argument list on 56. Let's go back down here. 56. Oh, yeah. So this project loaded. We have the closing curly bracket from the function, but we did not close out the actual event handler. Save that. Back to Pinegrow again and restart. So this is one thing that I really do ad nauseum when developing. I'm constantly restarting my Pinegrow. Okay, so now we have our GitHub menu. It's got the to, the HR, and our settings. So now if we go ahead and open a project, and we have that test project that we were using before, project test, go ahead and open that up. Okay, now we should see that with a project open, our menu would have changed, but at any point it should have fired our on project load. So we look down here, and indeed it did, because now we have three things that are in our console. Remember, the first thing we did was we console logged out what the page null object was, and right now it is set to null. I'm kind of wondering if I was to open a page right now, if that would change. We'll come back to that in a second. The second thing, the project is actually the whole of the project. And if we open that up, we can see all the different things that get passed in as far as what frameworks are actually there, sections, things like that, what the path to the particular project is, what the URL of it is, things like that. So that can be pretty useful to look through to be able to access those. And then finally, we have our target menu. So again, if you look back at the text, our target menu is going to be an unordered list with a class of dropdown menu and an ID of GH dropdown. And so if we look here, we can see that the target menu is a UL, unordered list, with an ID of GitHub dropdown and a class of dropdown menu. So it gives us the full info about that target. So now if we just drop that down, we can see all of the different things that are associated with that, all the different attributes that we can read off of this particular DOM element that we now, or this node that we now have. So one of the important things, I think, that we can take advantage of is right here, this child element count and the children. And what you see is that there's actually 4 children in the HTML collection. There's a few more in the node list because it's divided out a little differently, but there's 4 in the HTML collection. And remember, there were 2 list items left behind above the divider and then the settings below the divider. And we want to add in right here into our two new items right before this HR and after these two LI. So I think we can take advantage of this, the ability to access these children. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So going back to our code, we can now get rid of these console logs. Don't need those. And we actually, well, we can leave the console log target menu in for right now, just in case we need it back. So there's a couple of different ways that you can add elements back to a page using plain JavaScript. This is something that I used to do a bit more, and then I got into using jQuery a lot, and now I'm trying to nurse myself back to using just plain JavaScript. And so this is something that I kind of wrestle with. But I think the best way to do this is, even though I'd like to do it with as few commands as possible, I think really for ease of code reading, and maybe this is the only way to do it, we're going to go ahead and create a series of elements, nodes, modify the nodes, and then add the nodes back to the target menu. So first thing that we're going to do is, so we want to create two list items basically. So we're going to say let list one create element, and then we're just going to go ahead and create a list. And then actually we can go ahead and just go ahead and create a second one. So we're going to add two list items back. Then for I think each of the menu items within that, we're just going to basically add a string. There's some drawbacks to doing it this way. If you have click listeners, there's some stuff that gets stripped off if you do it this way. But I think for our purposes, since we're going to set up the click listeners afterwards, we can fire this, or we can do this way. So let's just do. Actually, let me change that back. I don't like that. So then we're going to let the menu item 1 equal, and then we'll just single quote. We're going to go back to the ones that we just grabbed, and we're going to go ahead and copy that, paste. I'm kind of old school. I always put the semicolons in at the end of the line. They are not needed, so you could leave those out if you wanted to. I just get in the habit of doing it, and it's hard to break myself. Things look wrong if they don't have the semicolons. So second menu item, do the same thing. Grab this. Paste it in there. So now we have our two menu items that we want to add back. And now basically we just have to put our menu items into our list elements. So we can decide where we want to do this. Could do this as a one go maybe. So yeah, I don't know if this saves anything. I guess I can change this later. This one. Inner HTML. Inner HTML is equal to menu item 1 and And so now I can just change this really quickly to 2. All right, so now we have each of our lists loaded with the, oh, I just realized, hey, I got to get rid of that. I just created that as an element, so let's get rid of the list that's surrounding it. That was really inefficient typing. All right, so now we've got these links put into our lists in each case. Now the last thing to do is to go ahead and put both of these back into the target menu. So I think what we're going to do in order to do that is we're going to create a document fragment. I think that might be the best way to do this. Yeah, I think so. So create document fragment. Yeah. And now, I guess here and here. Again, this is, I don't know if it's worthwhile actually doing it this way, but then we can say we can say new items, pen child. So that's going to take the new nodes that we just made, the 2 list items, and append them. And we can say list, and then it's either going to be list 1 or list 2. So now those are added onto our document fragment. So now we just have to place that document fragment in the correct place within the target menu, or yeah, within the target menu, so before that HR. So remember I said that we could take advantage of the fact that the children are in an array as an attribute of our menu. So basically we can say, we can identify where the menu divider is. So we can say let the menu divider equal the target menu children, right? Because that was the attribute that we saw. If we go back over to Pinegrow, if we look through the attribute was children. And arrays start from 0, so 0, 1, 2. So we want to put it, we want to identify the menu divider as the second child. So go back over here, children, and then it's the second one. So now that's identified our divider. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to say target menu, insert before. So that's just the method for inserting children before a particular item. So then this is just going to take what the actual thing we want to insert is. So in this case, it's our document fragment, so new items. And we want to insert it before our menu divider. So I have to say, it's been a long time since I've worked with DOM elements like this in pure JavaScript. I don't know that this is the best way. There might be a shorter way to do this, but I think this is fairly readable. So now at this point, I think we're going to be able to get both of the items added back in when we open a project. So let's give it a test. So save that, switch back over to Pinegrow. Oops. Give that a reload. No errors, that's great. Still have just the 2, the divider and the settings. Go ahead and open our test project. Now if we look at our menu, we have all 4. So that's really cool. The one thing that I would say though, I'm guessing now if I was to close this project, now if we look at our menu, it still has all four. So what we're going to have to do next is we're going to have to add another event handler that should be something like on project closed or something like that. And to find that, we're going to take a look back into our Pinegrow, and let's just do that and see what we can find. So there's one in, yep, right there, on project closed. So I think this live stream probably has gone on long enough. Like I said, I have to get to some farm chores, so let's just wrap up with a reminder and then we'll push this up to our tutorial 3. So we're just going to say yeah, let's keep that in capitals. Add event for project close. And so we can find that easy enough the next time. I don't think we should, well, one second. Let me just check what okay, so the same parameters get passed in, so why don't we just really quickly grab that to remind ourselves? Close that out so we don't get an error. And so now all we'll have to do is just fill that in. The next time. Okay, so now we'll save this. Then we're going to go to our GitHub. Whoops. We're going to stage all the changes and add our message. Okay, so commit that. Go ahead and push those up. All right, and so now we have our new branch up on our GitHub tutorial-3A that has this new set of menus. So hopefully just a little bit longer and we can start doing things like adding click listeners and start the actual functions of communicating with GitHub. I think we'll probably start with the settings, start with adding in a setting for username as well as an authorization token, I think. Because again, as I said, I think in the first video, that's pretty soon going to be the only way that you can authenticate or log into GitHub repos is through a token. And I still have to explore a little bit how to generate one of those, and we'll have to take a look at that in a future video. So until the next time, just a quick reminder, I should have said this at the beginning, I do work for Pinegrow, but this project that I'm undertaking right here isn't sort of a sanctioned project. It's just something that I'm doing on my own for fun and to help out any of you developers out there. So please, 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 if you're getting some value out of these, you can either say something in the forum or comment on these videos. I'm really fully willing to take any kind of suggestions. I'm really excited to see if somebody has some feedback on my code to maybe make it a little bit better. But until next time, keep programming.